GPU acceleration and playback quality are going to deeply affect the way that you can make creative decisions in real time and or in a render-less, not renderless, but render-less way of being able to work, which overall is going to be faster for you. So if we have a look at this edit here and notice all these different layers are going on, and I've got some color work, I've also got this 2.4 to 1 ratio letterboxing happening as well, and that's all working in real time. I'm not having to render this out in order to get this to work nicely. Now the one thing that I want to highlight is I'm getting this performance because if I go into the File, Project Settings, General, and I see my renderer, on this computer system I have a CUDA based GPU inside my machine, and it allows me to use the GPU to do the computing of a lot of the scale related, position, rotation, all those sorts of things, transitions that come with Premiere Pro. And if I was to turn off the acceleration and work in software only mode, then the CPU is having to do all the work. Notice now I have a red bar. That doesn't mean I can't work though. So just be aware of your system and what it can and can't keep up with. Now at the moment I'm trying to work with everything running at half resolution. Because I'm doing a screen recording as well right now, I'm using a lot more processing power to keep up with the screen recording. So if you do see the performance dropping and you really want to see this indicator here, which you can reveal in going to the top right flyout menu and ticking the show dropped frame indicator. When that's on, if it stays green, you know you're not losing frames just during playback. You're not going to lose frames when you export. But just to show you here, if I take this resolution and go to 1/4, even though I've got red bars, I can play this back and yes, it looks crunchy, it's not as nice to look at, but if I was to change this to say 25%, it's a pretty small image, but I can still make decisions on this without having to render it and to say whether or not I like it. So now I'm going to quickly change some of this and make that a completely different look. It's quite warm now, and then hit play. It's still playing back, and I've got my green dot, which means I haven't dropped any frames. This is a really nice way to be able to work without having to spend time rendering. You just get in the creative space of just trying to figure out your edit, even though this is red. If you do want to watch it back at a better resolution and it is red, then you will need to render it. If I take away some of these options here by if I just remove some of this here, you can see now I've got a difference between a yellow area and a red area. That's because the native file format is playing back without any effects on it at all, and so that should be able to play back relatively well. Notice I've gone from a green dot over to an orange dot, meaning I've dropped frames. If I want to just render out a certain portion, I might just use my in and out points to do this. Go to sequence and render into out. If I hit render effects into out, then it's just going to do the red areas. When this is rendering, let it render the entire way. Don't stop it midway. It will not build the final file that it uses as a reference until it reaches the very end. So let that render process finish. So now I can play that back at full resolution. If I was to go into fit and play that back, you can see that plays back really, really nicely. If you want to render out a certain portion that is yellow and still getting drop frames, then use the in and out range in order to get that to work. Render into out. And then you'll be able to render over the top of anything that is yellow.